It's time for City Beat, your source for all the latest news on the city of Thompson, only on 610 CHTM.
Hello and welcome to City Beat. I'm your host, Jaret Schneider, and joining me today is Mayor Tim Johnston. Good morning, Mayor Johnston.
Good morning.
I'll give you the first minute to run things down from the past week.
Well, I can tell you that over the last week, along with City Manager Sepatelli and Deputy Mayor Hogan, I attended the Federation of Canadian Municipalities annual conference in Vancouver. It was a good opportunity both for networking as well as taking some of the sessions. I can tell you that the premier item for discussion was infrastructure and the gains that FCM has made over the last number of years, but really culminated in the budget this year from the federal government with the indexing of the gas tax and the extension of that fund into the future, which is huge news even here in Thompson in terms of the ability it gives us to address some of the infrastructure issues, roads, water, sewer, things like that. So that was good. We heard from the federal minister responsible in terms of his commitment as a former mayor, so that was very positive. We also heard from the leaders of all the federal parties in terms of their approach to dealing and working with municipalities. And then the City of Thompson took opportunity while we were there to attend two specific meetings outside some of the conference activities. One was on the Crime Severity Index and meeting with some of the other mayors that I think I've spoken about it before, three categories in the crime severity, and when we looked at that, 8 communities finished in the top 10 of all three of those things. So had a chance to meet with some of those mayors while we were there and made a commitment to each other to continue to work together to look at the root causes. The Crime Severity Index, and I learned a fair bit about this in terms of some of the work and presentations that we received, it's a tool for an understanding of the type of crime that is happening in your community, ideally so that you can focus on those issues. And it's been very clear to us and the mayors of the other 8 communities that we share similarities and we need to address the root causes. So I look forward to continue discussion on that. The other session that the City of Thompson participated in was a discussion on the urban Aboriginal strategy and the need to continue to put the pressure on the federal government for a renewal of the funding of that program. I'm not sure if you're aware or if people are aware, but the City of Thompson is, I believe, one of 17 communities in Canada that was accepted under the urban Aboriginal strategy a number of years ago. They're looking at expanding the program, but they're really there's a lot of discussion about the level of funding into the future and whether or not that funding will continue. So we're the smallest community as that part, and we are included in discussions of Vancouver, Edmonton, Toronto, Winnipeg. So we don't necessarily have a huge influence on size, but I'll tell you this. It's clearly noted we do have a huge influence on actually taking actions such as the Aboriginal Accord and the work of the Urban Aboriginal Strategy here in our community on the initiatives they're doing to really be at the front and center in terms of some of the positive things happening. So that was nice to see. So really that was took the majority of the week back in Thompson, and we have a number of things upcoming in the near future. Tomorrow we're going to be recognizing our employees with our Recognition Service Awards and annual barbecue. And I've always said our greatest resource at the City of Thompson is our employees and the work that they do in and around the community. So I look forward to having Mayor and Council recognize them for their efforts. In addition, we've got this weekend some other community events. Encourage people to get out. I know there's a bike rodeo, 12 noon, Giant Tiger, in terms of educating people on bike safety, and I think that there's going to be some prizes for people there as well. And it looks like the weather is going to be phenomenal, so encourage people to get out. I can tell you that in terms of getting out, it looks like McLean Park is coming to a conclusion in terms of some of the work, so I'm very pleased with that. Encourage people to go take a look at it. And again, regular meeting of council will be held Monday, June 10th. Encourage people to come out, and there's always a question period if anyone wants to provide comments or ask any questions of council.
204-677-8181. Taking your calls to the mayor, 204-677-8181. 8181. Now, you mentioned you were down in Winnipeg, or in Vancouver rather, for the FCM conference. Now, how is it going to affect us, and what changes might we see here in Thompson now moving forward?
Well, I think that it's really important to recognize the value of participating at FCM, and I just want to say that I really saw it firsthand. I hadn't been at FCM the previous year, but Deputy Mayor Hogan is a board member from Manitoba on the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and I can tell you this, that she has done an outstanding job in terms of really focusing attention on our city and playing an active role in the committee she participates. But I met more people this year than I think I've ever met in the past, just because of the connections that Erin has made in her role as a board member, and I really want to acknowledge and thank her for that, and let people know that's why it's important that council is at those tables and does participate in those events, because it makes a real difference when governments are sitting down and they're seeing people from your community, or our community in this case, and they're front and center. So I was very pleased. Again, I hadn't been to FCM in at least a year, and I was pleased with where we're going and what FCM has been able to achieve, especially with the gas tax funding for our municipality. I believe it brings in approximately $800,000 a year that we never had a number of years ago. And I use the example, when I started on council, our capital budget was likely at best a quarter to a third of what we spend today, and we derive most of the revenue from taxes. Today, the revenue this year was the first time we have not spent a dime in tax, in property tax, because we've been able to get money through the gas tax, through the valet grant in lieu, through the accommodation tax. That's huge, because we're doing way more work and it's not costing the taxpayer directly. So those are some of the achievements you get by participating in these types of organizations and conferences.
204-677-8181. Taking your calls, 204-677-8181. Now, we know Nickel Days is on the way here next weekend. Now, maybe run down the weekend for us, some of the things that we might see from the city standpoint with that weekend.
Well, I always say that we're coming up to the 10 days of celebration in our community, really kicking off with National Aboriginal Day on June 21st, Nickel Days immediately following, and then Canada Day on July 1st. And I can tell you it's going to be a very busy community, and those activities will be spread out throughout the community. Nickel Days obviously is going to be back at the Thompson Regional Community Center. We working closely in terms of ensuring that we can position it properly and ensure the traffic flow and safety is correct. But yeah, we're upcoming to the real busy time in Thompson, and a real time to get out and celebrate all those good things that we have. And Nickel Days is one of those things. I commend the Nickel Days Committee and the United Steelworkers for the King Minor contest and the work that they do.
204-677-8181. Now, what are some of the economic benefits of having Nickel Days every year, and as you mentioned, the 10 days of celebration?
Well, it's clear that, again, we are a regional center, and I'll guarantee you the traffic and the number of people that are in our community over those 10 days will be absolutely huge in terms of its economic impact, and I think that's really positive. People come in and enjoy themselves at our festivities, and obviously are going to be spending some of the money in their money in our community, and I think more importantly, just seeing Thompson as that regional center, I think it's really important, and that's a role that we're beginning to play very, very well.
204-677-8181. Now, I know we've seen some road construction as of right now at the end of Cree Road and Thompson Drive, just down the street from us here. So do you know if there's any more construction planned here for the next little while, and when we might see it and where we might see it?
Well, I can tell you our construction is just getting started. What you're seeing at that specific location is the curb crew out doing sidewalk repairs from previous breaks and things like that. Those will continue. We have two departments that are involved. Public Works does the curb repairs and the sidewalks, and then the Recreation Department does the lawn repairs. So that's ongoing throughout the summer, and we'll be out and doing those sorts of things. And then, of course, we've got our Capital Works program, and we have a number of major initiatives this year for Capital Works. Obviously, we've got the Thompson Drive South section continuing the work that was done last year. And then we've got a tremendous amount of work that's going to be done on UCN Drive and the Thompson Regional Community Center. So in addition to that, we're going to be doing some drainage work in the BTC. So all of that work is in line and ramping up. And so again, I encourage people to take caution in and around our crews because that work's not going to stop. It's going to be a very busy summer. And just to note, I was very pleased last week that we just received notice. It'll be highlighted on Monday at the council meeting, but the province of Manitoba has just introduced a new infrastructure program, and we're going to be eligible for an additional $300,000 a year for the next 3 years. Here's the kicker. You have to match the dollars. The great news is the City of Thompson, because some of those things I talked about earlier, especially the valet grant in lieu and the accommodation tax, we're one of the few municipalities in Manitoba that will have the money to match the dollars. So we'll take full benefit of those monies over the next 3 years, which means we can do even more work. So it's going to be a very busy capital construction. The signs are going to start to be placed up where we're doing capital work. We're going to start to place signs so people know it's coming and what the dates are going to be.
204-677-8181, and we have a call from Angie, and Angie asks, why isn't there any water fountains for the walking track for the top of the TRCC?
Yeah, interesting. I'm not sure what the answer is. I know that we are just working on installing some benches based on a visit that we took to the PAW and their facility, so we're going to be doing that. I'd have to follow up with the Recreation Committee.
204-677-8181. Now, same with the road paving as we go back to the Cree Road and Thompson Drive. You mentioned some of the things that we'll see around UCN Drive, and maybe if we step away from that now, we go over to McLean Park. I know you had mentioned it earlier. I know there's some concerts in the park that are scheduled to take place there this year. When it comes to construction, it's really starting to look nice with it, and when will it be ready, and will it be ready in time for our first concert?
Well, I'll tell you, it was a huge transformation last night because and I was very pleased to see that we engaged a local volunteer group, and the sod has now been laid, so it went from a bit of a gravel and mud area to freshly sodded, so it looks absolutely phenomenal. There's still some work to be done on the canopy, but really it's getting very close to where we can utilize that facility. There's some minor work that still has to be done, but the transformation even in the last day has been amazing. So now I understand some of the groups have chosen to continue to use some of the other facilities so we can let the sod take hold and things like that, but really I anticipate, certainly for Canada Day, I hope we're up and running, or some of those other events that are coming.
204-677-8181. Now, as you mentioned, City Council meeting on Monday. What are some of the things that we might see on the agenda or come up in here on Monday?
Well, it's funny. I sat down in the agenda meeting yesterday, and what you're going to see on Monday is a number of delegations and presentations. We certainly are going to be welcoming some visitors to City Council and recognizing them for some achievements in our community. But we'll also have some reports from Replan on our development plan and our zoning bylaw changes that are taking place. And then we've got some committee reports. So I think the majority of the meeting on Monday is going to be largely delegations and presentations. And we do have a small number of resolutions to deal with as well.
And we are running out of time, but first we'll go to a caller. We have a call from Kurt, and Kurt asks, is there any progress on local 911 service?
Well, I can tell you that I understand there has been a report prepared by the province of Manitoba on 911, and we're reviewing it through our Public Safety Committee. I know that there's a great desire to see a 911 service here. We have been advocating to the province of Manitoba that we would like to see a 911 service delivery office established in northern Manitoba for the north, including Thompson. We're one of the very few provinces that only really has one deliverer, and that's out of Brandon. But we're certainly working towards a goal of seeing a 911 service in our community. And certainly we would like to play a role in delivery of that service. So it's ongoing, and I know it's on the agenda for the Public Safety Committee, and they continue to work towards it. I'm hoping that we'll see this report in the very near future and be able to get it out for the information general public.
And then before we go, I'll give you the final minute to wrap things up for the week ahead.
Well, the only thing I can say is that, it's interesting. I've been on the road for a lot the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I had a couple things that I really noticed. First is how clean Thompson is today versus what it used to be. and also how clean Thompson is versus some of the other communities I was visiting. And I think, again, I give the credit to our residents and the public area tenants and those people that are taking the time to focus on trying to keep it clean. We've had a number of compliments, but it really struck home when I saw some of the other communities. The other one is the weather is absolutely phenomenal. And as I was traveling, I always look at the what's happening in Thompson, and I don't think there's been a time in the last 2 or 3 weeks where Thompson's weather hasn't been better, whether that was in Winnipeg or Vancouver. So I'm telling you, we're having an awful nice spring leading into summer. That's great because it gets people out. I'm just really pleased to see the number of people out walking, and whether with dogs or with family, and it's great to see and encourage people to take advantage of the weather. Get ready for some really exciting couple of weeks in Thompson in terms of activities, but get out. But please remember, safe operations, safety first. Again, we've got Public Works out doing street cleaning right now, doing curb repairs. We've got the Recreation Department now doing lawn maintenance. And of course, take care in and around those crews. But also note, we are very, very dry. I think we've had some situations very recently, both in our community and outside the community. Please take precautions in around the community because we are very dry.
And that will do it for City Beat this week. Make sure to tune in every Thursday at 11:30 for another edition of City Beat. And to everyone, enjoy the weather and the rest of your Thursday.